We are here for the final edition of Under the Lights in 2024. Ben Spicer and Marc Henry, and we're coming to you so late in December and so close to Christmas because Texas goes all the way up to a couple days before Christmas with their state championship. Just wrapped up yesterday. We're recording this on Sunday. They just finished up Saturday, the 21st. A lot of great games, a lot of great action. Marc was there for all of those games from 4A on up to 6A. So he's going to recap, talk about some players, some teams that stood out here today. I'm just here for show. I'm just here to tee it up to my guy, Marc Henry, pass it off to him. I'm playing a little John Stockton today, I guess, Marc. But I want to talk about North Crowley because you've gotten the chance to kind of see this program evolve under Coach Ray Gates. You've talked to him, since you first took over there, and you've seen the evolution of them this season. You've covered several of their games, and their run has been phenomenal. And I think, frankly, it's something that needs to be discussed outside of Texas because this is one of the best teams, if not the best team, in high school football in the country this year, I think. Would you agree?
Yeah, I would have to say that they went through the gamut. We're talking about every team that you could possibly put on the schedule. They started out against a ranked Lancaster team that was a playoff team, 2 rounds deep as well. DeSoto, Rockwall, Duncanville in the semifinals. Crowley, which was they went 3 rounds in the playoff in their district finale. Denton Geyer, which was a deep playoff team as well. They have faced everybody. Then when you talk about the playoffs, a great Byron Nelson team, Capel, they faced a top quarterback in Edward Griffin. They also faced Allen on the way to the state title game. So they have been battle tested. And shout out to Ray Gates and his staff, Coach Eli Reinhardt, my guy, Coach Corn White, and those guys over there. They really brought it back for the city. If you know anything about this program, it's all about them. Week to week, you listen to Coach Ray Gates and their mantra for the season. It was district playoffs state in 3 phases, brick by brick. If you see some of the things that they posted on social media here in the last 24 hours, this is what they came to do. It was business as usual, a business like mindset for these guys, and they took care of business, man. I mean, it was one of those things where from the start you knew these guys. The first play, flea flicker to Quinton Gibson for 6. He scores 3 touchdowns, over 181 yards. Chris Jimerson, 299 yards passing, 5 total touchdowns, including a rushing touchdown. This was just one of those games where you knew that North Crowley is one of the best teams in the country. 50-21, a dominating performance. And listen, the thing about this run is all of these teams that we mentioned, including last night's opponent in Austin Westlake, are really good teams. These are not teams that just rolled over to get there. Austin Westlake, for the previous week, beat a nationally ranked North Shore team,
Yep.
the number 2 team in the state as well. This was not a team that didn't belong there. It was one of those things where North Crowley has just proven each week that they're the most dominant team in the state, and that one of the most dominant teams in the country. You also have to speak about that offensive line that features Henry Fanuku, John Turntine III. I think that they have some of the best young talent coming back as well. Defensively, Jabril Ashbury, Jonathan Cunningham, Maud Bradshaw, Drayton Fulbright, Galen McNeil, all of these guys up front. And, shout out to Derek Gleason, who was the defensive MVP. He's a 2027, a sophomore interior defensive lineman that he's going to start to rack up some of these offers here probably in the offseason as college coaches start to come around after they finish up, recruiting the 26s and 25s. He was the defensive MVP. But, I think it really started last year, Ben, when North Crowley took a tough loss in the semifinals to Duncanville, 52-10. Coach Ray Gates went back into the lab and he started to get this thing rolling. You had Coach DeMarcus Harris come over and kind of shore up that defense. And then just the pieces started to align. Daniel Bray also had a couple of touchdowns in that game as well. It's just a thing where Coach Reinhardt is the offensive coordinator. He's the guy that's getting everybody involved, and he has a plethora of weapons to work with. And I think you just don't see this type of weaponry on the offensive side of the football at the high school level and be so prominent that they can spread it around. A lot of times it's just, maybe three or four guys or two. We're talking about 5 or 6 guys that can go, including the quarterback. It was just a monumental season for those guys. And that's the reason that, we're talking about them today on the Under the Lights podcast. They did it for the city. The 817's back, and they got it done.
I hate to quit bringing it up. I mean, we've talked about this kid, it seems like since week one, but every week he seems to do something else that just kind of blows your mind. And his stats playing in Texas 6A ball are wild. I think even more wild is the fact that he's still only a 3-star by a lot of these outlets. And you mentioned him earlier on, Quinton Gibson, the success that he had, but over 2,000 yards, 36 touchdowns, I believe, on the season, wide receiver. How cool has it been to see his emergence over the course of, these last 3 or 4 months?
Well, Ben, we have to go back into in the 707 season with Wall Street. Shout out to Wall Street athletes. He was one of those guys that was prominent at the tournament. We had the crown at North Crowley. When we saw it then, so we saw it a little bit earlier. He was actually on the team and one of the guys last year, but he was the backup quarterback. He was the guy that was doing some of the things that they wanted him to do last year, punt return and things like that. But if you talk to Coach Gates and the staff and any of his teammates, he was doing this in practice. They were doubling him in practice. They were giving him this respect then. It's just it was on a national stage because of the games that they played this year, and he produced. I'll share a little tidbit with you. We had this talk, myself and Q, after the DeSoto win, on the road in DeSoto. That was when it really started to escalate, and things started to happen and move for him, where people are starting to come around and say, hey, we need to take notice to this guy. But it's just one of those things where it's the work while you wait mentality. He was playing behind 2 Division I receivers last year, but he never stopped working. He believed and trusted in the process, and Coach Gates and that staff trust and believed in the process of elevating and get him in the right positions, putting him in the right situations, and getting him the ball. Once he gets the ball, it's like magic. It's electric. As you can see, it was on a national stage last night because these broadcasts go all over the country. When you see a Texas high school football state championship, it was the marquee game on Saturday night, and the first play from scrimmage is scripted, just how it's supposed to go. And Quinton Gibson, Ben, we have these type of conversations within conversations during the state title weekend. And I was asked if this is one of the best individual season performances that I've seen in Texas high school football history. And you have to go with that. The numbers say it, the actions say it, and then he's the MVP of the state title game as well. I mean, what better way to go out? I think that, he's going to be one of those guys that we'll talk about in a couple of years for the Colorado Buffaloes that we're going to see that's going to be prominent in college football real soon. I think when you go off to college, all of his attributes that he has will just enhance once he gets into a college program. They're going to do the same things and get him in the same situations or similar situations to make his attributes, even expound or expand to a higher level. He'll be a Big 12 guy. He'll be in the Power 4 conference. That'll be, everybody will see him on Saturdays. We've been seeing it for 16 weeks here in Texas. And it's one of those things that, kudos to him. And when you talk to him, Ben, and you know this, he's a genuine guy, fun-loving kid. People and everybody, the communities embrace him and gravitated towards him. It's one of those things where the cameras are flashing around this guy every week just because of the things that he brings to the table.
Absolutely. And I know you were there for several other of the championship games. That was the headliner, I think. No doubt about it now. North Crowley's the best team in Texas. And like we said, we think they're up there, I would say top 5, if not higher, in all of the country in terms of high school football. But several other really good games, close games that came down to the wire. Looking at, and I'll put some of the final scores up on the bottom here in just a moment. But we're just going to talk about the games that you went to. But we'll start in 5A Division I. Smithson Valley over Highland Park, 32-20. Then you've got Richmond Randall taking down South Oak Cliff, 38-35. And Austin Vandergrift beats South Lake Carroll 24-17. South Lake Carroll came in 15-0 in that one. Randall finishes an undefeated season. They finished the year out at 16-0. What kind of stood out of those games I mentioned? You don't have to recap them all, but
Okay.
maybe kind of just go no huddle and share your thoughts and observations from those games we mentioned.
Well, I think Vandergrift controlled the line of scrimmage. They didn't really let Southlake make the big plays. This was a physical football game. They kind of had Southlake, not able to get off like they normally do. It was a great game. Shout out to Vandergrift, who came in with a great game plan. Miles Tedecki, the quarterback, I was very, very impressed with him. Got a chance to talk with him after the game. He's a 2026 quarterback that people are starting to know here this offseason. The Richmond Randall game was a great game. I thought that was probably the best game of the weekend to me, 38-35, because of what was on the table. You had South Oak Cliff, who's been to this particular part, of the season 4 years in a row. Just think
Yeah.
about how many games that is. In Texas, you play 16 games to get to the state championship. You have to win 16 games to be a state champion. These guys have been to this 4 straight years, have won two and lost two. Richmond Randall's a 3-year-old program led by Coach Randall down in the Houston area, and they finished 16-0. The MVP was Landon Williams-Callis. This is one of those guys that's probably the best running back in the class 2027. He had a great game. But listen, on the flip side, we're talking about a guy who rushed for over 2,000 yards, and Sock held him to 106 yards rushing. What does that say about them defensively? They actually led in yardage and time in possession. The key stat is going to be special teams in this
Mm.
game. Randall had 2 kickoff returns and the field position. They had a muff punt by South Oak Cliff that gave them, great field position. And those are the differences in the game. I think if you take away those, Sock dominated this game from top to bottom. Carter Kopecki played well. Mikael Trotter played well. Damon Williams played well. The defense played well. It's just when you take advantage of those opportunities, those are the differences in the game. And Randall, the Lions are champs because they capitalized on those. The first play of the game, the kickoff, was a reverse, and they took it to the house. And that was one of the things that kind of set the tone for the game. Missed field goal at the end, and Sock falls by 3. But I think, Ben, if you're asking me preseason coming into next year, these two teams could definitely be right back where we're talking, back in the state title game. And as far as Highland Park goes, tough loss. Buck Randall played well, a couple of interceptions, but I think this Highland Park team is very young. Buck Randall's one of those guys that we talked about early on in the year. Got his first sophomore to start for Highland Park since Matthew Stafford, and that's saying something. And it was great to see him on that stage and performing very well. But Smithson Valley had that run game going, and they took care of business 32-20, and they're the state champions. That coach had been coaching for 31 years, and this was his first state title. And they take it home. Shout out to Smithson Valley coming out of the San Antonio area. One of those teams that went last year. They were there. They lost to Aledo 51-8. They come back and rebound and get a state title.
I love it. I love it. You got the chance to see some of the best ball in the country. It all comes down to this. Seems like it's been a long season. I remember starting things back, seems like forever ago now, starting the show up, kind of previewing things for the preseason. So before we sign off, I want to ask kind of what these next couple weeks look like for you. I know we're less than a month away now from the DR7 schedule kicking off. So what's the next couple weeks looking like leading up to that? I know you've already been out at a 7-on-7 tryout for the platform, right?
Right.
And spotlighting some athletes from the TA Longhorns. So what's these next
Absolutely.
couple weeks looking like? Hopefully you're taking a little break for the holidays, man.
Well, definitely got to take a little time off, just to kind of get ready for that 7-on-7 season in a few weeks. I already had people this weekend asking about it. Shout out to Adam Sandoval and Scott Rapp, who were there with me this weekend, working with the platforms. You see some of the pictures and video that'll come out
Yeah,
of
they
this
did amazing,
weekend.
man. They were great.
Yeah, great job, man. We tried to make sure that we gave everybody around the country a little access to what Texas high school football is about, and then we get under the lights with it. That's why we're here. Shout out to Drew, the things he's been doing with the rundown. We want to let you guys know that the platform is covering all bases for what we do and what DR Sports does. And DR7, this is what leads into the off season. So the next couple of weeks, of course, you mentioned the 7-on-7 practices. Coaches and coaches and organizations have been hitting me up to kind of come out and get a sneak peek of athletes because it's all about the exposure and early identification. The camp season is starting up as well. So, I think, I also work with Prep Red Zone. There's a camp coming up January 5th. People been hitting me up about that as well. So, I'm gonna take a few weeks off, but I'll still be working behind the scenes. You'll still see stuff coming out on the platform in the next couple of weeks. Just getting us ready for that. We're one of those. We're guys that kind of keep things rolling year round with the platform, and that's what we want to do is to expose the unexposed. 707 is just a vehicle in the off season. It's just like working out. It's just like going to camps. If you use it the right way and you use it to get the right exposure, that elevates you. People ask, well, can you get an offer from 707? It's not about the offer. If you're playing 707 the correct way, if you're using it as the correct vehicle, it's another avenue of exposure to get you to what you need to do. I had shout out to Coach Calvin and Gator 707. They had me out the other day. If it doesn't translate to 707 to Friday nights, then you're not using it in the proper way. You know what I mean? So it has to be something that goes hand in hand. They work. If you're running track, you're playing 707, you're going to camps, you're working out with your school. There should be some improvement from January until you get to August. Those are some of the things that we'll be working on. Of course, fired up each week with the On Your Mark show. So those are the type of things we'll be working on. And listen, I don't think the Under the Lights podcast will go away. We'll be definitely doing some things from week to week, talking some recruiting, talking about some of the guys that we'll see on the circuit this year, week to week. That's what we want to do. That's what we're going to bring to the table for you guys because we want to keep you in the know year round. So, the next couple of weeks, that's what we'll be kind of working on.
Any other people you want to mention? I want to make sure you got everyone, all your shout outs before we sign off. Anyone else you want to mention that kind of stood out to you?
There's a guy for North Crowley, Keontae Ingram. I think you'll get a chance to know him. He's a sophomore running back. He was kind of one of those guys that he was very key, especially in that Allen game. He had a couple of touchdowns to get those guys going. Real intricate and keeping those guys going forward to a state championship. Bradshaw's a guy in the secondary as a safety. He's probably going to be one of the top safeties in the 2026 class as well. I mentioned Miles Tedecki from Vanderbilt. Got a chance to see him up close and personal. Reese Weiss, the quarterback for Westlake, 2026 guy, dual threat. He had a really good game against North Crowley. It was just, when you get stampeded with that type of talent, defensively, that puts everybody on their heels. So he's a guy. We talked about Buck Randall. You'll get to see him more and more. He's only a sophomore as well. Bo Bentley from Salina. We didn't mention Salina. He's a 2026 quarterback. He was the MVP of the Salina game, had a great game. I think he's going to be a guy that you'll see on the recruiting ranks in the state of Texas that'll start to kind of, go up in the offseason. He was a guy that stood out this week as well. So those are some of the names coming out this weekend, as far as we talk about exposure and going on the recruiting trail that came out of the state championship game that'll be having some buzz in the offseason.
I can give a quick shout out to Brody Knowles, South Lake Carroll. He had a big touchdown. Chance to see him grow over the years with Texas Epic. So shout out to Brody. I think he opened the scoring for South Lake.
Absolutely.
Nice catch. Looked like he was going to get tackled short, trucked his defender, got into the end zone.
Listen,
Brody,
man,
I love it.
Hey, Brody Knowles is developed into one of those guys. We're talking about a guy that's about 6'5" and long, lean, athletic. That play you're mentioning, those are the type of things we've seen Brody do with Texas Epic and Coach Don. But now he's growing into his body, and he's going to be along with Angelo Randa as well coming back. South Lake's probably going to be number 1 or 2 in the state when you come back next year. They got a lot of young pieces still coming back from this particular team. They just, this is the second time that Coach Dodge got them there, and they just have to finish the job. But yeah, Brody Knowles was a guy definitely. You bringing him up. He had a pretty good game, and Brock Boyd is coming back as well as 2026. So Davis Penn will come back for those guys. He was a running back. He was injured, but he's a 2026 as well. So listen, South Lake's going to be loaded. Watch out for those guys.
Thanks to you guys who tuned in throughout the season here to the Under the Lights podcast, the high school football season, that is. We're not going anywhere. Just maybe we'll wait until next year. But
Absolutely.
we'll be back. So stay tuned. Definitely like and subscribe if you're new here to the channel. And head over to the platformdr.com. I got a ton of articles, ton of content that's already published, and I'm sure on the way as well. So, Mark, appreciate your time. For Marc Henry, I'm Ben Spicer. Thanks for joining us here on the DR Sports YouTube channel. See you next time.